Sarah, what's the state of the race as the campaign reaches its climax?
Laura, for so many days now, we've been hearing how tight this race is. We've been saying it on 7:30. It's what the polls have been telling us in all of the crucial swing states, the 7 crucial swing states. It's been too close to call the results. Whoever was leading in whichever one were within what's called the margin of error. So too tight to call has been the message for a long time. But something has been going on in the last 28, 48 hours. Kamala Harris looks like she has that crucial word in politics everywhere. She has some momentum, and that may be being reflected in some particularly ugly lines that Donald Trump is using. And over the weekend, a stunning poll came out in Iowa, which is not, Laura, one of those crucial swing states. That was the big surprise, not one of the big 7, and certainly not the state of Pennsylvania, which many people have been saying for a long time is going to be the decisive state. So a poll comes out in Iowa that surprisingly shows Kamala Harris ahead by 3 points. And in particular, looking at the numbers driving that 3-point advantage for Harris in a state that was supposed to be down for Donald Trump, are women, and in particular older women who may, of course, be being driven to make their choices by the famous Dobbs decision, the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And in a little bit of granular detail there, Laura, a number of those women who make up that 3% going to Kamala Harris are older women. And of course, what older women know is what reproductive rights, what women's health issues look like for women before Roe versus Wade. So this is a big shock to all sides. And what we think we can see today is Donald Trump reacting to, reflecting on what is a very surprising result from Iowa.
The issue, the Roe versus Wade issue, has been there for the whole length of this campaign. Why is it, do you think, that people are now responding to it? Is it just a question that we're getting close and it's crystallised the vote? Or is it possibly some of those really out there things that Donald Trump has been saying over the past week?
I think it's a combination of all of those things. At the same time, you're seeing Harris really hitting her straps in this campaign. She took a long time to find her feet, to hone her message, but supported by people like Michelle Obama, she's really finding her language on this issue. The campaign also has been doing a lot of really clever things. They were putting post-it notes in women's bathrooms. They were telling women in very powerful advertising campaigns that women don't have to tell their partners. They don't have to tell the men in their lives how they're going to vote. So those women they are trying to enable those women to vote entirely on their own volition. And something about that particular campaign, Laura, must have resonated because Trump himself made a comment about it and said how wrong it was that a woman would not tell her partner who she was voting for. So I think it's a convergence at this point. It's been a strong issue, as you say, for a very long time. Reality bites. We're in the lock-on part of the campaign where decisions must be made. And of course, we know that this election, as it stands at the moment, as we understand the polling where it is at the moment, what matters is the decisions of a relatively small number of people in the swing states.
Could you be our eyes and ears, Sarah, and tell us what it looks like in America to the average voter? I mean, is this issue completely dominating things? We see a lot of reports of voters, particularly young men, talking instead about the economy and about being able to buy a house. And Kamala Harris was criticised early on for her failure to really nail the economic argument. How's that all playing out?
You're right about that. Look, let's be fair. She was dealt a very tough hand at the beginning. Biden was unpopular. Biden's economic plans were unpopular. Inflation has been very high. Prices have gone up. People are worse off than they were 4 years ago. It was a tough hand to deal with. She didn't hone a very good message at the beginning of her campaign when she took over from Biden. Importantly, what people are seeing and hearing here, Laura, is all of the things we're talking about. Of course, it's reproductive rights, but it is absolutely a cost of living election, and immigration is another absolutely vital issue. But again, this is a very tricky election. If it does, as the pollsters say, come down to a small number of people, you can't ignore the fact that a number of those people will be voting on single issues. So cost of living vital, but if you're a single issue voter sitting in one of the swing states, you could be part of deciding the election. But that's what the Americans are seeing, an absolute torrent, a bombardment, you can't get away from it. But pocketbook is always important. Everybody involved in politics knows that. It's very hard to win an election when you're fighting a cost of living election, when you're fighting what is perceived as an unsuccessful economic strategy by the Biden administration.
So finally, given that so much of the focus this time around is on all of those domestic issues, including the attacks on illegal immigration, compared to, say, 2016, when there's a lot of focus on the global stage, what are the implications of this result for Australia?
They're very big. There's a reason why the entire world is paying attention to this result, and it's not just because Donald Trump is such an extraordinarily, unusually compelling figure. It's not just that he's someone, the great showman, who's managed to fundamentally change the Republican Party and indeed politics, win or lose. He has done that in America, and there's no taking that away from him. But it's important to the rest of the world because, amongst other things, he's announced an economic policy that includes very high tariffs. The number bounces up and down a little bit. Sometimes it's 200, sometimes it's 60% on China, sometimes it's a 20% tariff across the board. There is one other way to think about it, Laura, though we know about Trump that negotiation is of central importance to the way he conceives of all of America's relationships with the world. So we have to see, were he to win this race, you would have to see what he actually does, because what he likes to do is to use numbers like those numbers he's been using on tariffs and use that as part of a negotiation to get a better deal in terms of trade with all of the countries that the US does business with. So it sounds very bad, it sounds genuinely threatening, but as always with Trump, you have to see what he does as well as what he says.
Well, we look forward to you leading us through the coverage over the next couple of days.
It's going to be a hell of a ride. Look forward to sharing it with you.